are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams.
Hey, welcome everyone to Meanwhile Back at the Lab with Paximus. Thank you so much for being here, whether it's the morning, afternoon, or evening. I am so glad you guys are here with us. I'm really excited to have this conversation with Grace Chen. And I just stumbled upon her live stream a couple of weeks ago, I believe. It was just really nice because, well, for starters, I had not actually met a live streamer from New Zealand. So I was like, oh, this is cool. And with the accent and everything, and I'm sure you can probably hear I have a California accent in one way, shape, or form. But anyways, all that to say is that I'm really excited to have this conversation. And for those of you who perhaps might catch this on the replay, definitely do me a huge favor and check the description below and subscribe to Grace Chen. And guys, thank you so much for being here. And we're going to go ahead and just kind of get straight into it. And if I can just get myself situated here. All right, cool. So, Grace, thank you so much for being here. It's good to see you. How are things going with you?
Hey, I'm good, thank
that's
you.
my
I'm
fault.
so excited to be on this podcast today. This is actually my first ever podcast collaboration, so it's
Yeah.
really exciting.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you're here. I know that you were running into a little bit of traffic, and I just wanted to reassure you, like, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. This is even though we
Thank
do
you.
like this whole live stream thing, like everything. I mean, I'd like to be a little bit more just like authentic. Like, hey, it's
Yeah,
okay. I don't know about
and
you,
I
but
really
like,
appreciate that.
oh yeah, of course. And this is meant to be just a fun conversation where we get to know a little bit more about you, Grace. Kind of what you do and how you kind of got into the whole YouTube thing because that I told you this before, but I tell a couple of my friends that I'm on YouTube, and they're like, "What? Really? What?" So, could you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you
Yep.
do, and like, do you go to university right now, or like, what's that look like for you?
Absolutely, yes. So, hello everyone. My name is Grace, as Paximus introduced, and I'm currently 17. I live in New Zealand, specifically Auckland, which is the largest city here. And I'm currently in high school. I'm in my final year. So, yeah, coming towards the end, and I'll be starting uni next year.
Okay.
Um, I started YouTube. I actually started YouTube back when I was 11, I think, like quite a while ago.
Wow,
I
really?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
So I actually grew up sort of as an internet kid. I would always watch YouTube videos,
Yeah.
um, like funny skits and whatever. I just grew up on the internet quite a bit. And
Mm-hmm.
so ever since I was young, I've always enjoyed watching things online. And I decided when I was like 10 or 11 that I wanted to be a YouTuber. So
Wow.
we started off
That's
with just my dad filming on like one of his old cameras for me. Yeah,
it's
I
totally
think I
vintage
actually
and
uploaded.
retro style.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Good old times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I actually uploaded my first video, I think around 3 years ago now.
Hmm.
And yeah, I've just been enjoying it ever since.
Awesome. And I noticed that Amicalicious, who's another study streamer, she's actually in the chat with us. So thank you so much, Amicalicious, for being here. And for anybody else who's listening, thank you so much for being here, guys. So just kind of tell us a little bit about like what caused you at 10 and 11, because that's pretty young, but what caused you to actually want to go into YouTube? Like, did you already have in mind, like content? Because you know how the YouTube game works is, like, they all say like, well, you have to have a niche, or you have to have content that people like and everything.
Mm.
Did you already know this before, like going into YouTube, or did you get like a camera one day and we're like, yeah, like just get it from my dad and just, yeah, then we'll make this work, and I'll make it work.
I've got to say it was more of the second one.
Okay.
I had no idea, like no, I had knew nothing about YouTube. I didn't really know that niches were like you'd have to have a niche to really see success on YouTube until quite recently.
Hmm.
When I first started off, it was more of just like a fun thing to do on the side,
Right.
something to do when I wasn't at school. But
Yeah.
recently, because I've been thinking more and more about what I want to do in uni, what I want to do with my future,
Right.
I've realized that YouTube is truly one of my biggest passions, if not the biggest one.
Mm. Yeah. So you've been so if I may ask, do you know what kind of thing you want to do in uni, or have you not quite figured that part out? What like in terms of a major or anything like that?
Mm. Yeah, so I have been giving a lot of thought to that recently because we've had to apply through the past
Mm,
few months. And
right.
I'm planning on studying law conjoint with computer science.
Okay.
So at the university in my city, when you study law, you have to join it with another degree. And so that's my plan.
Wow. Oh wait, so you have to do two, am I understanding that correctly? So you do two different things.
Yeah, so if you do law, you have to join it with, say, like a branch in commerce or a branch in science.
Okay.
And that's just so that if you don't get into the second year of law, because it's very competitive,
Oh,
that
I
you
see.
have a backup option that you can fall
Right.
back to.
Mm-hmm. So, and I'm kind of curious, have you already kind of pinpointed like the college, without even having to tell us anything about like what said college or anything, but have you already figured out where you're going, or any of that?
Yeah, I mean it's sort of public information because it's on my YouTube channel anyways.
Okay, I just
Um
I didn't want to overstep my
yeah,
bounds
thank you
here.
though. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I live in Auckland, I'm planning on going to Auckland University just because it's in my city and it's
Hmm.
also ranked quite highly in like internationally.
Hmm.
So,
Awesome. And I'm kind of curious, with the law degree, right? Because it's, I mean,
mm,
that's a very competitive. I mean, I can only imagine, right?
yeah.
The most of the people that I know are either teachers, lawyers, or there are like artists, basically. So, but I know with law specifically, it's pretty tricky and it's pretty competitive. But it
Mm.
also, I think, it depends on the location. Um, but for you, what's kind of the draw for you? What's the interest for you in terms of
Mm.
going into law? I mean, because that sounds good and it sounds really competitive and challenging at the same time. Could you tell us a little bit about your mindset for that?
Yeah, of course. Throughout high school, I've had a lot of influence. Back when I was in my first year, I had a really cool social sciences teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
she really inspired me to look more into things such as human rights and the humanitarian sciences. And I've debated throughout my time at high school, so I'm in like the premier team for my school,
Mm-hmm.
and so like me liking to argue and then me liking social sciences, like that combination really
Right.
drew me towards law,
Mm-hmm.
because the thought of possibly having a career where I could just argue all day in court, that tempted me. So yeah, I guess that's sort of where the decision came from.
Yeah. Do you know what specific area in law that you're thinking about, or you're not sure yet?
There are a few options. I think the main one that stands out to me is being a criminal justice lawyer
Okay.
and defending people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I'm kind of curious also now when it comes to the study with me community, because how long have you actually been doing that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it's been a few months. It
Okay.
hasn't been a year yet. It's been a few months. Yeah.
Right. Now, did that happen when everything kind of started to lock down and things like that?
Yeah.
So that I'm assuming that is what maybe propelled you into that in that area, right?
Yes, definitely. I had a lot of free time, so I thought, why not just spend it online?
And how did you know about Study With Me? Like, what was there a particular streamer that you saw like by accident or that you knew of and that kind of influenced you, or how did you kind of get involved in it?
Um, the study with me streams would pop up a lot in my
Mm,
YouTube recommended, and there's a
okay.
lot of channels doing it now.
Right.
But there were a few main ones that kept popping up in my suggested,
Uh-huh.
and I can't remember off the top of my head any of the names, but
Hmm.
yeah, after seeing those, I thought, I could do that too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it honestly, it doesn't seem that hard, right? You just do
Mm.
your work. That's essentially all you
Exactly.
do is you do your work, and that's the name of the game right there. Is just you encourage other people to, I suppose, do their work as well. But so how many, like, and I suppose this might be a question that you get asked quite frequently, or I could be wrong, but how many hours, that it seems like that's always the question that people are asking. How many
Mm.
hours do you devote to studying? How much is good? How much is bad? What's your take on it?
I find that that answer changes every single week with
Hmm.
every single, some weeks you're assigned more than others. And
Right.
then, sometimes you have exams and sometimes you don't. But I'd say on average, I do at least an hour a day just so I can stay, connected to school and connected to the things that I'm learning.
Hmm.
But I feel as though counting the hours can be quite negative,
Mm.
just because once you look at numbers too much, it can sort of almost unmotivate you at times.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Well, I suppose it's because you feel like you have to keep going until a certain time. Like, maybe if I set it for 12 hours, oh my gosh, 12 hours, I have to now do that, So I wonder if that
Yeah.
adds pressure to you as a study streamer, like, and instead of doing that, you elect to do something different where put in the title something as simple as just simply study with me, Pomodoro. Well,
Mm,
that's it versus putting like the actual numbers or something like that, because that probably feels
mm.
a little bit more restrictive.
Yeah, definitely. I found recently I've been doing more sort of, I'll tell people at the beginning of the stream, I'm just going to study for as long as I feel comfortable for and for as long as I need to.
Right.
Because I found that when I was doing my longer streams, which were like around 8 hours long, I was
Hmm.
getting to a point where my brain wasn't even working towards the end. And I was just sitting there sort of not really being
It's kind
productive.
of like
So,
mush, and it's just
yeah.
you're like, okay, I can't really function anymore. So I think it's
Yeah.
now's a good time to stop, if any. And
Mm.
what have you what makes you and your live stream unique compared to perhaps other people's that you've seen? Is there something that makes yours unique, or is it just kind of like, well, no, this is just my room and there's nothing else to it, you know?
I think it's you. I guess the most obvious thing is that I am from New Zealand, and
Right.
I often find that my viewers come in and they're like, "Whoa, you're from New Zealand! Like that's tucked away in this tiny corner of the world, and I've never heard of it before."
Right.
And yeah, I don't see a lot of huge YouTubers coming from New Zealand,
Hmm.
and I guess that might be one of my unique points.
Mm. Now, can you tell us a little bit because you did say that you did from 10 or 11 years old you were on YouTube. So during that time, like what are some things that you did that you experimented on that you found that you really enjoyed about YouTube? Because I know that you said that the biggest thing for you is realizing that how passionate you are about YouTube, but I'd love to hear maybe a little bit more from you as to like what fun things you encountered along the way and what maybe you kept with you.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's definitely a lot to think about. I think YouTube was it gave me this opportunity to express myself like creatively. Like there's just
Right.
no limits,
Yeah.
total creativity,
Mm-hmm.
and I was always quite shy growing up, like very shy at school.
Mm.
But when I logged onto my computer at the end of the day, hit that record button, it was like no worries at all. I could just talk freely to the camera.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess yeah, that was one thing that really stuck with me from the time that I was 10 or 11 was that the internet has so many supportive people on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's always felt like everyone's been really supportive online and it's sort of like a second home, I guess you
Mm-hmm.
could say.
Yeah, and is there a particular activity that you did on YouTube that like that you still consistently do, or is there something that sticks out for you?
I'm not sure if there would be a particular activity.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or even if it's like the
yeah.
the video editing process or like putting a video together, putting content together, is that something of a big draw for you?
I can't say that I edited my videos at all back in
Oh,
the day. They were sort of just
right. Well,
they
and
were
I
just
figured, I
uncut.
figured probably back in the day you probably didn't do any of that, um,
No.
but as you progressed and got older and started putting out more videos and things like that, now were the videos of like friends, hanging out and like discovering new stuff, like hacks, things like that, or what was your channel specifically about, or was it just a general like vlogging channel? Like what was it?
I was really obsessed with food and like especially foreign food. So I
Yeah.
would always try new things, new like uh, Japanese candies, and like yeah,
Ooh, you had me at
lollies.
candy. Man, I'm telling you, like, if it comes to candy, I'm there. Like, I've never had Japanese candy, so I'm kind of curious. Like, is it?
Oh.
Yeah, no, well, I'm like 100% Mexican. Okay, so like all the all the candy I've had is from Mexico, and I okay, well, maybe I have a stash somewhere back there, but I'm not going to tell you anything more about that. Anyways, continue,
Oh, I would
continue.
love to hear more about it later, but I can't say I've ever tried Mexican candy, but it sounds
Okay,
great.
so
I
we
would
we
love to
got
try
we
it one
gotta we
day.
gotta figure out a collaboration where I try the Japanese candy, and then you try Mexican candy, or something to that effect, and then we'll do like a video
Absolutely.
on it or something, like a
Yeah,
reaction
that's a
video.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, but the candies that I used to try, I'm not sure if anyone would be familiar with this, but the brand was like Crazy, like Kracie,
Okay.
and you basically they'd give you this set with like a plastic bowl and like packets of powder, and you would mix together your own candy and sort of like make it. It was just a fun like children's toy.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that's like the stuff that I was really interested in.
Yeah.
So I would just make it on camera and review it.
Nice, very cool. So, tell me a little bit about like just your because now going into high school, that seems like very difficult years and leading up into a college, career and everything like that. So, could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a student in high school? Like, would you consider yourself like a straight A student or a B student, C student, a good student, bad student? Like, tell us a little
Hmm.
bit about your high school,
Yeah,
experience.
of course. I don't really want to toot my own horn, but I would say that at high school I really stepped up my game, and I would call myself a straight A student.
Mm,
Not that it really matters that much, but I
mm-hmm,
guess I really enjoy the academics and aiming high with my grades.
mm-hmm.
Within high school, I'm actually the head prefect at my school. I don't know if that's an American term, like if
That
you have those
is
over
not
there.
an American term. I just know the term
Okay, never
because,
mind.
well, actually, I take that back. In particular private schools here, the prefect
Mm.
term is thrown out there, but it's very rare. So whenever I hear
Right.
it, I
Oh,
think Harry
okay.
Potter. Yeah, like because that's my only reference to it, So, but that
That's
sounds well,
hilarious.
and it's funny because when you said prefect, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Like, I
Oh,
immediately
thanks.
thought, "Oh man, she's got like authority and stuff." Well, maybe tell us a little bit of what goes into that.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure what the American equivalent would be, but it's basically with all of our high schools here in New Zealand, there's like usually a representative of the school in the senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And so at my school, I got chosen, and I'm really fortunate to be that for my school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know how you. I guess how you'd explain the role is you're basically just a representative of the school, and you're a role model for all of the younger students,
Mm.
and you promote the school.
Well, I think the equivalent here would be we actually say like class president or like vice president and all
Mm,
that stuff. So I suppose we do go by that, but we don't say prefect, but it's essentially the same thing because you are representing the school and you're representing
mm.
your the student body and everything like that. So now I'm kind of curious when it comes to the studying part, did it come easy to you to be able to do the academics to be the straight A student that you were saying that you were because or are because some people find it very easy. Like academics, I had this conversation with last week with another YouTuber. His name's Dole Whip Dad, and he
Oh
has a lot of
yes, yeah.
wisdom, and yeah. So you might have seen it or not. I'm not sure, but he was telling me that, like he wasn't necessarily the best student, but things came easy to him, and he didn't really put too
Mm.
much effort into it. And I'm kind of curious with you though, like, did you have to really put in a lot of hours, a lot of effort into it, or did it just come easy to you?
I definitely had to put on a lot of hours. Yeah, I um, with every single test, with every single thing that we had, with every single quiz, I would study a lot, and I still do,
Mm-hmm.
just because I find that, with me, things don't really come naturally. I do have to put in the work
Mm-hmm.
in order to get the grades that I want, but
Right.
I do enjoy studying anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's a win-win.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest. Like, I was not the best student. I mean, like, I barely did enough to like pass. It's so funny though because for me, I didn't learn how to study. That was the thing for me is that I
Mm,
had to work really hard once I got into college. And it sounds to me though that even though you worked, I mean, it sounds that you worked hard, but you saw the results from that work. I didn't really put in that much work. And not until I got into college, because once I got into college, then I started to understand, oh, you have to learn how to like there's an art form to this thing, you know.
Mm,
And the reason why I bring that up is because some people struggle with the amount of hours, the amount of like how
mm,
much they have to put in order to get results. Now, around the friends that you had or the people that you saw, the people you represented, did you feel like there was a lot of anxiety before like exams and things like that? Would people like freak out, or
mm.
how did you actually kind of face those head on? You know, was it with anxiety, or was it with like, no, I'm gonna do this and it's gonna be fine. I just need to put in the work.
Mm. I actually go to an all girls school, so not to generalize or anything, but
Hmm.
when you're put into a school which is all girls, um, things tend to escalate very quickly when it comes to exam seasons and anxiety and
Oh,
stress.
sure,
I'm
yeah.
sure you can imagine. Yeah. So, and especially because my friend group, we're all quite academically focused, it definitely
Oh,
gets
okay.
quite stressful around exam season.
Hmm.
Um, but I've recently, this year especially, with my head prefect role, I've had to really learn to deal with stress during times of pressure.
Mm.
And so I met this Olympian trainer back in January, and he told me this quote, which was like, it was maybe so, maybe not.
Hmm.
And basically, what it means is, what happens, happens. If you somehow get a bad result, if you somehow, mess up an important moment, like the world is going to keep spinning. And in the grand scheme of
Right.
things, it's not a huge deal. And now when I go into my exams, I just say that to myself beforehand, and I feel so much less pressure,
Hmm.
um, because I know that things will still be okay no matter what the result is.
Hmm.
So I guess that's how I deal with stress now.
And did you find that it was easy for your other friends and, classmates to deal with stress like that? Did you observe any of that, or was it mainly like just in your circle of friends that you mainly observed?
Um, I'd say definitely all of my friends, feel stressed throughout the year. Um, yeah, yeah, it's being in high school is difficult.
It sure is. It's funny. It's funny. I've been teaching middle school students and seeing the results of people who work really hard, um, but who maybe work too hard. You know what I mean? Like they
Mm,
work a little too much to the point where they start to get sick. Now, I'm kind of
mm,
curious. Because I this is for me this is true. I've actually gotten sick a couple times because I didn't learn how to stop when I was supposed to. Like, and I don't know if
mm,
that makes any sense, but I would get to a point where I would study so much that I would physically start to feel sick. And I'm wondering, like, did you ever see that among your community? Because I know here in where I live, a lot of my students, already at the junior high level, they get sick because of academics. They get sick because
mm,
of homework and the amount of homework that they have to do. It's like it's incredible how much they have to get done in a short amount of time, and it's very different than it was 10 years ago. So I'm kind
mm,
of curious to know, like, did you see anything with yourself or with your friends and how they dealt with any of those things?
mm. That is, yeah, definitely an interesting question. And I would say I've definitely seen people at my school, just so overwhelmed with stress, have to take weeks and weeks and weeks off.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend who, I'm not going to mention their name,
Right.
obviously, but they got sick from the flu,
Mm.
back when winter started, and she had to miss a whole week of school. And over that whole week, we covered so much information that
Yeah.
once she was well again, she was so overwhelmed by how much she had to catch up on that she ended up just not coming back to school for the rest of the term because she felt so stressed,
Oh my
and
gosh.
overwhelmed with the amount of work that the
Mm.
school had given out and how much she had to, catch up on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would say yes, definitely. At least all of my friends have at least once been, physically affected by stress from school, and that's definitely a negative thing. But I guess it's quite common. I'd say within like most
Mm-hmm.
high
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's so here's a huge concern that I would love to just kind of like talk with you about. I've asked other live streamers about this because one of my biggest concerns is about anxiety and the negative effects of homework. I even wrote a paper,
Mm,
my thesis on it, to basically talk about how the statistics are just mind-boggling. People are like getting physically ill, emotionally and mentally ill, to where it's affected them and the people around them. So I'm kind of curious. I'd love to have just a little bit of a conversation with you and to hear your thoughts on what about the topic of homework, like specifically homework.
mm,
Do you think homework is truly beneficial? Or do you think maybe it has one too many consequences that come with it that, it outweighs the benefits, if anything? So do you feel like it's more beneficial or negative, or what's your overall take on homework?
mm. I mean, when I found out back a few years ago that homework was first created as like a punishment for people, I became pretty anti homework. I was like, that is terrible. Why are we doing
Yeah.
this to ourselves?
Okay, so you're going to do this for
But
the next 10 hours. Go,
yeah, it's like, no, I
That's
don't want
terrible.
to. Yeah.
Right.
And then you see countries in East Europe where students don't get any homework and
Mhm.
their mental health is so much better and they're still
Mhm.
doing great academically.
Right.
Um, I honestly don't think it's that effective, especially because, I mean, you see a lot of teachers assigning homework and then students just they don't do it.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
after they don't do it, they start to feel bad about themselves for not doing it.
Mm.
But like the homework wasn't even that helpful in the first place.
Well, and do you think it's because now it's funny because I've been teaching in the last 10 years or so, give or take, and what I've noticed with some, and I in my situation it was very different because it was an elective class, where you can kind of give out homework, but it's not really like you don't want to do that anyways, and so I think over the 10 years I've had multiple discussions with teachers, and some teachers are for homework, some others are not. Almost all, if I can say this accurately, I think all the students that I've talked to said no to homework, like no homework. Why do you think? I mean, what's the biggest concern, um, in terms of a teacher perspective? Maybe if I can form the question this way, teachers give out homework because they want you to learn, or they want you to demonstrate that you've learned something, right? Um,
Mm,
but at the same time, if it's moving so fast and not everybody's able to keep up with the workload and they haven't quite learned it, do you think it's okay for a teacher to still give out homework at that point? Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I think at that point, if a student is behind and you load them up with more work that they won't know how to do, that's going to have a huge effect on the student's mental health. I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds stressful to me.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely at that point it should be more of going back to the student and finding out what foundational. I don't know if that's a word.
Hmm.
Foundational.
Yeah. Yeah.
Foundational
Hmm.
information that they don't know,
Right.
and starting it from there, because when you start to pile things on like that, ultimately won't work at all.
Well, because then I would assume it becomes counterproductive, right? It doesn't benefit the person who's receiving the homework if they haven't quite learned what they're supposed to be doing in the first place. Now I'm kind of curious also, like, is there a particular, well, because I know that you said law, that's what you're planning on going into, but was there a particular subject matter that you were just like, I'm really good at this, even though whether you liked it or not, like you noticed that you were really good at it? Is there one particular, or maybe multiple subjects?
Mm. So I'd say that my two best subjects at the moment are probably English and math, just because I grew up doing maths with my parents. They would, give me little little activity sheets to fill out when I was little.
Hmm.
And I would, I learnt my times tables recently, not recently, sorry, reasonably early on. Um,
Well, that would have
and I
been
just
for
enjoy.
me recently because I'm terrible at math. Like seriously, if you've ever caught one of my lives and someone says, "Oh, I've been doing math," I'm like, "Ill, why would you do that? That's gross." Like I don't know why would you say that, you know? But no, seriously, like math is not my favorite thing in the whole world, but it's so funny to me that you like math and you like English cuz to me they don't go together.
They are two very different subjects. That is definitely true. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's
they
why
use
I'm
totally
just like,
different
whoa,
parts of the
you
brain.
you do both. That's that's pretty awesome.
And I guess that's why I'm doing law and computer science. Like they're two very
And
different
that
things.
makes
Computer
sense.
science is totally, calculus and science, and then
Right.
law is English and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and moving forward into like the study with me community, like what are maybe some hopes that you have for like the time that you're going to be on live streaming? Like, do you plan on doing that while you're in uni, or obviously, like, well, in America right now, we're on break, we're on summer vacation. I don't know what
Mm.
it's like for you in New Zealand. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, right now we're actually on our term two break. So we have four terms a year.
Okay.
And so this break lasts 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going back to school in around 5 days when Monday rolls around.
Ooh.
So, yeah,
So,
pretty soon, unfortunately.
are you going to be in person, or is this online, or is it a hybrid model? Like what does it look like for you?
In New Zealand, everything is open at the moment. So we've
Okay.
been at school since February, just normal.
Oh, good. Well, and I say good because it's like I don't know if you've heard much of it, but like here in
Mm.
America, like that's you know the sooner we could get back into schools, the better. That seemed to like the idea, of course, is that that virus is not around, but that we would just be able to like go back to normal. You know what I mean? Like that's everybody's
Mm.
like, yeah, let's just go back to normal. Hopefully, it can be all situated and taken care of. And so
Mm.
yeah, but I think for me as a study with me streamer, like I do these live streams in a pretty methodical way, but do you feel like the pomodoro technique, now that's a pretty common thing in the study with me streaming, but do you elect to do that, or do you feel like you want to do a different model? And well, what does that look like for you?
I've definitely heard, the Pomodoro technique is definitely successful, and it's really an effective way to study. But I actually do 1 hour study sessions and then a
Hmm.
10-minute break, just because I find that works easier with my style of studying, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. And do you find it like do you think that doing it more, like more studying, like how do I say it, like if you were to break it down into like 30 minutes versus 60 minutes, do you think that that would be worse for you because it kind of ruins like your flow, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think Uh, because the tests that we have here are always structured. They're either 1 hour long or 3 hours long. I
Mm-hmm.
do tend to like sitting down for longer amounts of time, and I think with 30 minutes, I would not be able to get enough work done.
Right. You're like, no, this is not working.
Yeah, I get through like a quarter of a test, and I'm like, well, there's the break.
Right. And so, do you like in the next couple of months, as you said you're in second term? I'm sorry, I missed it. You
That's all
said
good.
second term or second break?
Yes, yeah, second break.
Second break. That's what it was. Okay. So, as you move forward into like your classes, are you a bit nervous? Are you like excited? Like, what's kind of the feeling for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say that I'm nervous because in terms three and four, which are the next two terms,
Right.
we are starting our exams and our mock exams. So
Mm,
stuff is getting a little bit more serious, and
right.
there are a lot of commitments for me next term. I'm in a few music groups as well, and we're traveling next term, so I'll be out of school for quite a bit of it.
Mm,
So yeah, next two terms are definitely quite busy for me, and I'd say yeah, a bit of anticipation.
Right. And so I'll ask one more question, but if if there is kind of like I suppose one of the things that comes to my mind is the fact that you're a prefect, right? That already has a lot of responsibilities from what it sounds like to me. I could be wrong. But then to be a student and then to like have to manage your time because you're involved in so many different things, is that something that you feel is easy to do at, like, to manage your time, or is that something that you're starting to realize like, oh, maybe I struggle with this, or what's your take on
Mm.
time management?
Mm. I'd say I've always, throughout high school, I've thrown myself into extracurricular groups. Like, I would always join like as many as I could because I just wanted to try everything at school.
Mm,
Um, but it is definitely difficult. I'd say like I can get everything done at the end of the day to the quality that I want, but I have to work hard to get there. If
yeah.
that makes any sense.
Hmm.
Like it just takes a lot of time and dedication and not getting distracted.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just assume that, like, because having to be on top of your, class, all your classes, and then prefect duties, or like, it just sounds like a lot. So, I know
Mm,
when I was your age, I struggled really. Like, I mean, I think even a certain extent, I'm still working on time management, and one of the things that I noticed is that's kind of the key behind keeping a steady schedule, and being able to maintain your grades and things like that. But when do you know if it's too much? Like, at what point do you
mm.
say like, oh, you know what, I think I'm doing too much? Do you dial it back, or do you just kind of like, do you keep going through it? Like, what's been your experience?
I'd say at times I've had lots and lots of times this year where, just like you described, I've realized, wow, I'm really overcommitted right now.
You're like, well,
Like,
no, if I carry my two, I'll be fine. Like,
yeah, yeah, stay up till 4 a.m. and it should work out. Um,
right.
yeah, during those times, the main thing that I try to do is cut back on my social media usage, funnily enough.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah,
I should
like things
probably do
such as
that.
TikTok. Yeah. And I mean, these holidays, I've really let go. My screen time's up at like 12 hours a day. It's terrible.
Yeah, I
But
think my
yeah,
thumbs are literally like connected to the phone sometimes. It's pretty bad.
yeah, it's so hard. I mean, especially with like apps like TikTok, where you have a for you
Oh
page where
yeah.
it's the algorithm is there to capture your interest, and you just can't stop scrolling. It's so difficult.
Okay, so now call me crazy, but I was on TikTok just yesterday, and I was scrolling through, and I was like, I don't know why it felt like 5 minutes, and there was this random video, and it could have been, I don't think it was from TikTok. I think it was just a user. But this
Mm.
user put up something like, "Hey, you've been scrolling for a while. Why don't you take a break?" And then it just like stopped, and I was like, "Oh!" And then I took a break. Like, it literally reminded me to take a break. It was so weird. So I don't know if it was a user, or if it was like part of the TikTok algorithm, like putting in a video. Like, have you come across that video or no?
No, I actually haven't, but it's great that you saw that.
Well, because I didn't realize it, because then like 45 minutes went by, and it literally felt like 5 minutes, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life?" Like. So I think
Yeah,
one of
that's
the
so
biggest
relatable.
concerns for me is definitely social media, and I can
Mm,
only imagine, like, being in high school as well. Like, I mean, social media is kind of, it's kind of your thing. So, um,
mm.
but hey, Grace, thank you so much. I want to just take some
Okay.
time to say thank you, because I know this live stream was just a little bit up in the air at first, but then we were able to solidify a time. So thank you so much for spending some time with me, and allowing us to kind of get to know you as well. And where could people go to subscribe to your YouTube account, and maybe your other socials or anything like that?
So my YouTube is just Grace Chen. My face is the profile picture, so you'll know which one it is. On Instagram, I'm at gracie.nz. And on TikTok, I'm head girl Grace Chen. And yeah, those are my main social media platforms.
Oh, you know what?
But thank you so much.
And I just realized I put your
Mm-hmm.
information in the description.
Oh, great.
So I don't even know why I asked you.
Amazing. That is all. It's very late over there, so I totally understand.
Yeah,
it must be like 1 a.m.
Actually, yes, it is.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry for keeping you up so late.
No. This was a pleasure to be able to get to know you, Grace, and hopefully maybe in the future be able to bring you on for another podcast where we talk about a certain subject. I think I'm actually planning some new things in the future, so I would love to keep in connect with you. And for those of you who are checking this out right now, or perhaps watching this on the replay, I want to thank you guys so much for being here. We do end things a little bit differently here, and I think you guys know maybe what time it is. So Grace, thank you again. This was very, very fun, very enjoyable for me. Thank you to Kartu is live. Kartu, thank you so much for being here. She's another Study With Me streamer. Actually, we have a couple of Study With Me streamers online. Amicalicious, MJ Oatmeal. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Queen's Corner TV and the Word of God Garden and more. Thank you for being here. Neil, Mithravindas was here. Study with YC. Guys, and BSHRN. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, I really had a wonderful time hanging out with Grace and being able to just enjoy the time, a good conversation. I really hope that I'll see you guys soon. And remember to subscribe to her account. And thank you so much for being with us. Have a good night. Hadouken!